So I had a little bit of feedback for you on your question about jumping. I wanted to shoot a video because some of the stuff is a little hard to explain through words. Just for a little background, I've used this concept to help me go from a rider who literally wrecked trying to jump off of a curb when I first started to consistently hitting 40, 50-foot gap jumps, like, big, tall wooden lips, like, jumps with lips, right? And it's one thing to kind of hit a jump that's just kind of a straight cinder, but when you start talking about lips, there's a technique to it, and you definitely want to do it right, or you can get yourself hurt, or if you want to get the most out of it, the most fun, the most pop out of it. And so I wanted to kind of give you some feedback on that, and then show you a couple of things that might be able to help you with that. So first off, what is the technique? Now, again, I was pretty inconsistent with my jumps, had to work my way up, but I was always a little inconsistent with it. And it was when this thing clicked for me that my consistency got way, way better. And the idea is that as I go into the hips, into the jump, right? So again, there's all sorts of symptoms that you'll see, but what's the cause of what's going on? So things like the stomp, there's a lot of different ways for you to stomp and try to apply pressure with your feet into the pedals. But a stomp is a symptom of you, if you're doing it right, of you driving your hips into the lip of the jump, right? Your arms and legs going straight. That's a symptom of you driving your hips into the jump. If you're driving your hips into the jump, you're gonna stomp the pedals, you're gonna let your arms and legs go straight. You don't have to think about those things, they're just gonna happen, right? Now, what we don't wanna do is just lean back, right? Leaning back is a terrible thing to do. And the other thing that you don't want to do is nothing, especially if you've got like a pop on that lip. Both of those things are going to end up with a sketchy jump, or you're not able to get the most pop out of it and having to over rely on speed. Like that's the thing with a pop, with a lip, is you actually want a little less speed than you think you need, and to rely on the pop, that driving your hips into the lip of the jump to help you gain the height and the distance that you need. So a couple things to help you with this. First, how to do this, okay? If we were to go to a jump park or whatever, and there was like a small little, double, and I was to tell you, okay, I want you to run up to that jump, and I'm gonna have you jump across this gap, right? So you would be looking, where do I want to plant my foot to jump across this gap? When you got to it, you would throw your hips across. That's how we jump. We throw our hips across, okay? And so then once you've jumped, right, now you're gonna start spotting your landing and getting ready for all that stuff. So the thing that I've realized is that you know how to jump. It's just, we think because we're on a bike that it's somehow different than what we would normally do off of the bike. And it's not. There's very little difference. It's the principles are the same. The methods may be a little bit different, but the principles of jumping on a bike and jumping without the bike are the same, which is spot where you want to apply the pressure, right? The spot on the top of the jump. And then once you start to get there, you're going to time your pressure to drive into it. And so again, whether you're on a bike or you're just carcass hucking yourself, it's gonna be the same thing. Now, this may be difficult to do on the bike. And this is where, in my opinion, off the bike training comes in. You have to train yourself to have a good explosive hip hinge that comes from the hips and not the lower back and leaning back. And so, using exercises like a deadlift, I just got a kettlebell here, you can use barbell, whatever, but you wanna make sure that you've got a really good deadlift, like super good, not kind of okay, really good. And you don't want a squatty deadlift. I don't wanna have my chest upright and my knees really bent. I have to really work on this ability to push my hips back. Pretend there's a button behind your butt, and I'm trying to push my butt back to find that button, okay? And as I do that, that lets my chest come down and my arms find the kettlebell. And then when I come up, I'm gonna drive my belt buckle back over my feet. And driving my belt buckle over my feet is what's gonna bring me up. What I don't wanna do is lean back, okay? That's what a lot of riders do on and off the bike. Like if you do that off the bike, I guarantee you that's what's happening on the bike. You're not gonna fix how you move on the bike. You have to fix how you move off of the bike and then apply that better movement to the bike. So again, get your just basic hip hinge or basic deadlift dialed in. And then once you've got that, then start adding in explosive hip hinge movements like kettlebell swings, right? Again, push the button, drive my belt buckle. Push the button, drive my belt buckle. Okay, so again, I'm not just leaning back while I'm doing it. Another good one that you can use is a dumbbell cheat curl. So if you don't have kettlebells, I can do a cheat curl where I'm like this. And again, same idea, I'm gonna drive my butt back, explode, and use that explosion to bring it up. Hips back, explode. The thing with the dumbbells I like is I can actually get into a pedal stance. I can put my feet in the same position they would be on my pedals and practice the exact same movement. Butt back, drive forward, like so. So you have to make sure you've got those things dialed in off the bike, and then you're gonna be able to apply them to the bike. But in watching the videos, it does look like you're not really driving your hips. You're not really popping your hips into the jump. You're doing a bunch of other stuff, and it's getting you partially there, but you're missing that key thing. Again, you know, the causes versus, you know, symptoms, right? And so if you're focusing on the symptoms, which, you know, in my opinion, are things like the stomp, straightening your arms and legs, and you're not focusing on the cause, which are the hips driving forward, then it can kind of look right, but something's always gonna be off. And so still, you know, make sure you're incorporating those other things, but make sure you're driving your hips in, popping your hips into the lip. Again, think about it. I know how to do this already. If I wasn't on my bike and I was just carcass hucking myself, I would do it just fine. So maybe even do some broad jumps. That's a great way to practice as well. Just broad jumps as far as you can. Obviously I got some stuff there, so I didn't want to jump as far as I could. But just any sort of explosive hip hinge like that will help you get a feel for that. So anyways, hopefully this helps. Let me know how it goes, and yeah, good luck.